What if Disco Elysium was more compact and set in a dystopian cyberpunk world? A game where the writing is still so good it sends you down moral rabbit holes at the same time as balancing on a tightrope between desperation and survival. Citizen Sleeper fits this description to a T, but it isn't without its flaws. Developer Jump Over the Age released a sequel this year to high praise, but I revisit the original 2022 title to see where it all began. What's up? How's it going, people? Welcome to Casual Gamer Reviews. If you enjoy this video, please consider leaving a like and subscribe, as it really helps the channel. I spent 12 captivating hours with Citizen Sleeper and really felt like I went on a unique, albeit depressing adventure, reviewed on Xbox Series X. Citizen Sleeper simulates a tabletop RPG whilst doubling up as an interactive novel. What I mean by this is you have character classes and stats, but every single decision you make is at the mercy of a dice roll. Everything is about managing your time and dialogue choices. If you don't like big walls of text, this game isn't for you, but if you enjoy scintillating writing that will keep you up all night thinking about moral dilemmas that would make Immanuel Kant proud, then this game is where you belong. After the title screen, you get to choose your class out of 3 options: Machinist, Operator, and Extractor. Each of these classes will offer a bonus to one skill and a debuff to another. Because of this, all 3 classes are on a relatively equal footing to begin with. What the skills do is provide benefits and increases to your dice rolls. It also works the other way though and can contribute to a loss on your dice roll. The 5 skills are Engineer, Interface, Endure, Intuit, and Engage. Each dialogue option or choice is a narrative path of progression, and each action is tied to one of these skills. The outcome of each action can either be negative, neutral, or positive. The dice have percentage outcomes tied to them, so 1 and 2 are 50% negative or neutral, whereas on the other side of the spectrum, a 6 yields a 100% positive outcome. Each day, or cycle as they call them in this world, you wake up with your dice rolled and they are presented at the top of your screen so you know what you have to work with. The number of dice you have depends on the health status of your sleeper character for reasons of corporate fuckery I will get into later. When the health bar depletes below a certain threshold, you will lose a die, meaning you will have less performable actions that day. There are very few ways to restore your health, but the most efficient is to get a drug called a stabilizer, and these are extremely few and far between, especially before endgame. Tying into the survival aspect is hunger. Each cycle will make your sleeper more hungry, and if your hunger bar reaches 0, you will take health damage instead, meaning that keeping yourself from starving is crucial. Thankfully, buying food doesn't always use a dice action, but it does cost money, which is also an extremely finite resource. You will meet several characters ranging from lost souls to tyrants and everything in between. Characters present quests, which this game calls drives, and drives are essential for not only progressing the story, but unlocking areas and gaining rewards for your actions. Now, I'm sure you can start to piece together the gameplay loop. Each cycle, you start with an ever-depleting amount of dice rolls, in which you must decide whether to use an action to progress a character quest, work for money to buy food or stabilizer, unlock a new area to explore, or a little bit of all of the above. What if your health reaches 0? You die, right? Well, actually, that's not completely true, and I'm happy that it isn't. It is very easy to get trapped in a rut in Citizen Sleeper, especially on your first playthrough, where there is nothing you can do to survive due to a series of poor choices. It accommodates for this by removing the death and replacing it with broken skills. If your health reaches 0, you'll be bumped back up to 50%, but one of your skills will break, putting you down on a -1 debuff. Speaking of skills, they branch along a tree which has 5 stages. It begins as a debuff of -1, then progresses to 0 with a passive effect, then +1, then another passive effect, then when fully upgraded it goes to a +2. As explained before, these buff numbers add to your dice rolls, so it is important to level them up. You get skill points from completing drive story threads, so all of the gameplay mechanics tied together in a neat little robot bow. Overall, I think the onboarding process is a little too complex, especially at the start where the game introduces so many systems at once it can overwhelm the player. I think maybe there was just one too many things involved. For example, I don't think it was needed to have both depleting hunger and health degradation. The The depleting dice rolls can really get you stuck in a corner if you then have to factor in spending money on food. Being a playable visual novel with walls and walls of text for the player to read, Citizen Sleeper relies heavily on its storytelling. It was this impressive narrative prowess and engaging heartfelt characters that made the experience an unforgettable one. You play as a sleeper who are robots with imported consciousness and owned in their entirety by a corporation, S&ARP. If this sounds bleak, you'd be damn right, so it'll be no surprise that the game begins at the start of your escape from the corporation, effectively making you a fugitive. S&ARP, being the greedy overlords they are, have factored in this possibility, meaning that sleepers can only survive if they consume a stabilizer, a niche drug that is only produced and supplied by the corporation themselves, a truly fucked up reality. Having managed to escape to a desolate space station called the Eye, your sleeper must fight to survive and either build a new life or find a means of escape via one of the game's 8 endings. You will meet many characters along the way, each of which are meticulously well written. Standouts for me being Lem and Mina, Sabine, Emphis, and later on Escher. There was no single character that I didn't care for. There were only people that you either really rooted for or wanted to see fail. There wasn't really any in between. The same cannot be said for the story endings, of which I got 6 of the 8. Some of them were far less interesting to me than the others, and that was a shame. If you were someone who played to just one of the endings and didn't explore routes of the other characters, you are at risk of being seriously let down by this game's climax, and really that's an issue that should be pointed out. What the writing does do perfectly is express the weight of your decisions. Each choice struck me with an internal pause where I really had to think hard about what I wanted to do. Not many games can express that kind of power through its writing, so it must be recognized and applauded here. The great visuals of Citizen Sleeper lies in its character portraits. Each conversation or interaction will bring up this gorgeous full body portrait of the person or people. Some characters even have multiple portraits depending on narrative outcomes. The art is created by, and excuse my pronunciation, Guillaume Singelin, who is an artist with a load of comics and graphic novels under his belt. His work here is instantly noticeable as a delight and will grab your attention as soon as you start the game. They are an incredible blend of space tech and cyberpunk outfits, but it was the faces that drew me in the most. The faces perfectly reflect the character and their emotional struggles. You can see the signs of desperation or the spark of revolution. Little touches like this are what makes art of this kind so unique. The standout designs for me were Feng, Bliss Hunter, and the 3 sleeper designs, but really there isn't a single bad one. There is no voice dialogue in this game, so all of the audio analysis falls to music. Amos Roddy composed the soundtrack for Citizen Sleeper, and he returned for the second title, which is always a good indicator of quality. There isn't really anything I would describe as side content in this game. Given the desperate attempts to survive, every single action and choice is purposeful and leads towards an outcome one way or another. As I said earlier, there are 8 different endings for this game, so there's loads of replayability, and the game even lets you continue on after some endings, meaning that you can get multiple in a single playthrough if you so want. It is impossible to get them all in one go though. There are 3 DLCs, Flux, Refuge, and Purge. These are all free, and I played the first episode Flux and thoroughly enjoyed it. Assuming the other 2 are in the same style, these are more narrow focus stories with fewer characters in the mix. However, this did not take away from the powerful writing, which is still very much present. The version I played on Game Pass had Flux included, but as a free download there's no reason to not get the others too, and I look forward to going back and trying them out. Citizen Sleeper is one of those games that stays with you for a while after completion. I do wish that the main endings were of equal quality and that the onboarding process was less convoluted, but this is strongly made up for through the incredible story writing and character designs. Developer Jump Over the Age has created a simply wonderful piece of media here, and I look forward to seeing if they ironed out any of these creases with the second title. If you are looking for a visual novel crossed with a tabletop RPG, then look no further than here, as I would happily recommend it. Citizen Sleeper gets a casual gamer score of 8 out of 10. Check out my channel for more reviews, spoiler casts, and discussions. I have recently published my Avowed review and spoiler casts for Lost Records, Bloom and Rage, and Death Stranding. Leave a like and subscribe if you want to check this all out. Let me know in the comments below what you think of Citizen Sleeper, and for everything casual gamer, keep it here. Peace and love.